per the Estonian government. With tensions already high because of the war in Ukraine, the incursions came just in fact, over a week after more than 20 Russian drones entered Polish airspace on the night of September 9th, 10th. That prompted NATO jets to down some of them, and Western officials to say Russia was testing the alliance's readiness and resolve. Estonian Prime Minister Kristen Michael has said that his country has decided to ask NATO to open consultations under Article 4 of the alliance's treaty, and that the Russian jets flew around 9 kilometers into NATO airspace before Italian F-35s currently stationed at a base in Estonia pushed them out. In fact, we're also learning at this point in time that Emmanuel Macron has condemned the incursions and called it a provocation for Russia. Meanwhile, UK Defence Minister John Healey has called Russia's actions reckless and dangerous and stated that the incursion only strengthens NATO's resolve to stand with Ukraine. Mr. Keith Vaz, I'd like to understand from you, what does Estonia's formal request for an open consultation under NATO's Article 4 mean for the conflict?
Well, it's the formal way in which NATO countries ask other countries to move in and support them in case of an incursion by a third party. In other words, someone who's not a member of NATO. They can ask, but to be perfectly frank, this is not going to happen, because as we saw recently, when there was a threat to Poland, even though nobody actually knows where these drones came from, some suggest these could have been Ukrainian drones. This was turned down because obviously it was decided this was not an incursion. So I don't know whether it's the Russians doing this deliberately, or they don't have control of their zone as drones, or they're just doing it to tease NATO, but it's having the desired effect. Estonia, as we know, is one of the Baltic countries right in the far northern part of the EU. They share a border with the old Soviet Union, currently Russia, and its constituent states, and as a result of it, which they are the closest. Poland, Estonia, even Romania, all these countries on the eastern part, who used to be members of the Warsaw Pact, incidentally, are all closest to what is happening in Russia. So it will not, NATO will not take action because there's a big process involved. You've got to get all the defense ministers together and all this kind of drama before anything is going to happen that's going to worry people as being an escalation in the current crisis.
Right, absolutely. Now, of course, we've seen what happened in Poland. We've now, of course, spoken about Estonia. How exactly do you view the developments that have taken place over the past 1 week, the two airspace violations that we are talking about?
We don't know who was responsible for the Polish incursion. We know the incursion took place, but nobody has held up their hands and said, actually, we're responsible for this. I think if the Russians mean to harm Estonia, they will tell everybody. They won't just do it in a way that it's going to be quiet. It doesn't sound like Putin's style. Putin's style is to be very upfront and tell people very clearly what they're doing. So I'm not sure we have definitive evidence as to who is responsible. And that's presumably what Secretary General Rutte is waiting for, that clear evidence as to what's happening. Don't forget, NATO doesn't have its own independent forces. There's no NATO army. These are the armies and the air forces of existing NATO members uniting together. And the ones that are the biggest are, of course, the nuclear powers, Britain and France, also Germany, even though it's not a nuclear power. It's shown itself to be much more interested in defense issues. I can't see the Americans wanting to spend any money. With President Trump, if you use one of his aircraft, apart from if he uses it, of course, you have to pay. So the NATO countries in Europe will have to pay for all this. So the bottom of all this is who is going to pay if indeed everyone starts taking action against the Russians. But this is too low level, it's low-hanging fruit. There's no indication anyone has been injured or killed as a result of this. This seems to be just the Russians behaving in a way to cause drama and crisis in NATO. And it seems to have its effect. If one drone flies over, everyone goes into a great drama about this. Actually, Europe has 500 million people. They should behave like a superpower and behave as people who are not going to be worried about a few drones here and there. They need to be much more confident, stronger, and not kind of run around and get worried. Estonia is a member of NATO. It's a member of the EU. It's therefore going to be protected. So they have nothing to worry about.
All right. So with that, I'd like to thank you for joining us on NewsX World, sharing your insightful perspectives. With us, meanwhile, we leave it there and shift our focus to some other news that we are tracking. Well, some residents in Shanghai have expressed pessimism about the future of US-China relations despite a recent phone call between US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping. The call, which took place on Friday, centered around an agreement of on the future of TikTok's US operations. In fact, Trump announced on Truth Social that the conversation was productive and that he appreciated Xi's approval of a deal that would see TikTok's US business sold to a group of American investors. TikTok, owned by the Chinese tech giant ByteDance, had previously been told to sell its US operations or face a potential shutdown, while Trump had initially set a deadline for TikTok's had in fact set a deadline over there, but he's delayed the ban multiple times since it was first postponed and proposed in fact in January. Earlier this week, he pushed the deadline to December. For many in Shanghai, the latest development offers little hope of a breakthrough in improving US-China relations. Let's in fact listen in.
我觉得就是从长远来看，我并不觉得美国这个想要共赢的这个是真的，因为我觉得他种种行为上来说，就是我觉得他是想做这个老大的，所以我觉得他就是会在很多地方就是给中国使小绊子，然后我们中国的话是希望是自强，所以我们做出的一些反应都是因为不得不做，对我们并不会去惹事，但我们也不怕事，对我是这样看的。对，所以我觉得美国就是他就是嘴巴上说一套，但是他背地里做的又有点不一样，所以我觉得是这样的。
我也不算特别关注吧。那么，就我自己来说，我可能以后会想去留学嘛。那么，我肯定希望这个两国关系是越来越好的。但是可能目前的话，我觉得可能多数人比较悲观吧。
我觉得最近好像老百姓的情绪也比较抵触美国人，就不管之前是疫情的关系，还有经济战，然后也听说美国人有可能也会有排挤中国人、华人，但是我觉得大家应该还是要多看看好的一方面。虽然就是媒体有一些报道出来不太好的新闻，但是我相信作为每天的这个日常的生活来说，还是有很多好的两国之间的，不管是旅游啊，还有其他的一些人跟人之间的一些友好关系，所以还是希望大家有抱积极的、乐观的态度。